Picture this. It's the kind of evening that feels almost magical. The sun's just starting to set, spilling warm golden light across a quiet park. You can hear the faint laughter of kids playing in the distance, their joy bouncing off the nearby trees. Dogs are barking happily, and a light breeze carries the smell of freshly cut grass. It's peaceful. One of those rare moments where life feels simple, almost perfect. Now, right there in the middle of that calm is Lisa Johnson. You might not know her yet, but trust me, by the end of this story, you'll never forget her. Lisa's in her early 30s, strong, resilient, the kind of woman who's been through a lot, but carries herself with a quiet dignity that you can't help but admire. She's there with her daughter Maya. Maya's just 10 years old, full of life and curiosity, her whole world revolving around her mom. To her, Lisa's a hero, her protector, and her best friend. Tonight is special for them. Lisa works hard every single day to provide for Maya. She doesn't get many breaks, let alone evenings like this, but tonight she's made time to teach Maya how to roller skate, something Lisa herself loved as a kid. You can see the pride in Lisa's eyes as Maya wobbles on those skates, her little legs trembling with every uncertain step. And Maya? She's beaming, soaking up every bit of her mom's encouragement. "Keep your knees bent, baby. If you lose your balance, it's okay to fall," Lisa says with that gentle, steady voice of hers. You can tell she's not just teaching Maya how to skate. She's teaching her how to face life, how to pick herself up after a stumble and keep going. Can you picture it? Lisa holding her hands out, ready to catch Maya if she falls. Both of them laughing as Maya takes one hesitant step after another. And for a moment, it's like nothing else exists. No stress, no bills, no worries about tomorrow. Just a mom and her daughter sharing a memory they'll both carry forever. But here's the thing about moments like these. They're fragile. And sometimes the world has a cruel way of shattering them when you least expect it. From the corner of her eye, Lisa notices something, or rather, someone. A man. He's walking toward them, slowly, deliberately. He's wearing a uniform. A police officer. His face is hard, his eyes cold, and there's something about his presence that feels wrong. Lisa's smile falters for just a second, but she doesn't let Maya see it. She's been through enough in her life to know when trouble is coming, and this man, he's bringing trouble with him. Now, let me ask you this. How far would you go to protect someone you love? What would you do if everything you've ever tried to teach your child about fairness, safety, and dignity was put to the test in the most horrifying way imaginable? Because in the next few minutes, Lisa is about to face a choice that will define not just this evening, but the way her daughter sees the world and her place in it, forever. And as for the officer, he has no idea who he's about to cross. This is the story of courage, a story of injustice, and a story of what it really means to stand tall, even when the weight of the world is trying to crush you. Let's begin. As Lisa steadies Maya on her skates, her laughter ringing out like music in the still evening air, she notices him. At first, it's just a figure in the distance, a man walking slowly, purposefully, his silhouette cutting through the soft glow of the park's streetlights. But it doesn't take long for Lisa to recognize the uniform, a police officer. Now, for most people, a police officer in the park might just be a casual glance, something you barely notice. But for Lisa, it's different. She's lived long enough, seen enough, to know that this isn't just a man out for an evening patrol. There's a way he's walking, the way his shoulders are squared, the way his eyes seem locked on her and Maya. It's not casual, it's intentional. And Lisa's instincts, honed by years of navigating a world that hasn't always been kind, start to buzz. Something's not right. She doesn't say anything to Maya, Why would she? Maya's still giggling, gripping her mom's hand as she tries to balance. Lisa doesn't want to ruin this moment. Doesn't want her daughter to feel that familiar knot of fear she's worked so hard to protect her from. But inside, Lisa is already on high alert. Her chest tightens, her jaw sets. She's scanning the park now, assessing. There are other families here, kids playing on the jungle gym, couples walking hand in hand, but none of them seem to notice the officer. None of them are being watched. It's just her, just Lisa and Maya. Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt it? That creeping sense of being singled out? The way the air changes when someone's watching you, not with curiosity, but with judgment? It's a feeling that sticks to your skin, like you're being measured, weighed, and already found guilty. That's what Lisa feels right now. And she's felt it before, too many times. But it doesn't make it any easier. She glances back at Maya, who's oblivious to the figure in the distance. Lisa smiles, even though her stomach's in knots. "You're doing great, baby," she says, her voice steady. But her eyes flicker back to the officer. He's closer now, his face coming into view under the streetlights. He's middle-aged, with a stern, tight expression. His eyes are sharp, cold, and unrelenting, and Lisa can tell this isn't just a passing glance. This man has something on his mind. Officer Daniels, that's his name, Lisa doesn't know him personally, but she's heard about him. People in the community talk, stories about the way he stops black residents for no reason, how he treats them like intruders in their own neighborhoods. He's got a reputation, not the kind you'd want to brag about, but the kind that makes people cross the street when they see him coming. And now, here he is, walking straight toward Lisa and Maya. The gap between them closes, slowly but surely. Lisa keeps her focus on Maya, pretending not to notice, but her heart's pounding. She's running through scenarios in her mind, preparing for whatever might come next. What could he want? Why here? Why now? And why them? The officer stops a few feet away, close enough that Lisa can feel the weight of his gaze. Maya, still wobbling on her skates, finally notices. She looks up at her mom, sensing the change in her mood, then glances at the officer. "Mom, who's that?" Maya asks innocently, her small voice breaking through the thickening tension. Lisa doesn't answer right away. She kneels down, adjusting Maya's skates, giving herself a second to gather her thoughts. "Just someone doing his job, baby," she says softly, but there's no warmth in her voice now. It's controlled. "Careful." Daniels doesn't say anything at first. He just stands there, arms crossed, his shadow stretching across the ground toward them. The silence is heavy, almost suffocating. Finally, he speaks, his voice low and sharp. "What are you doing here?" he asks, his tone more accusation than question. Lisa stands up slowly, keeping herself between him and Maya. She looks him in the eye, her expression calm but unyielding. "We're just enjoying the park," she says evenly. "It's a beautiful evening." Daniels raises an eyebrow, his lips curling into a faint smirk. "This isn't exactly your kind of place, is it?" Can you feel it, that undercurrent in his words? He didn't have to say anything specific. He didn't have to. Lisa knows exactly what he means. Lisa's hands tighten into fists at her sides, but she doesn't let him see it. She doesn't want to give him the satisfaction. "It's a public park," she replies, her voice steady. "We have every right to be here." For a moment, Daniels doesn't respond. He just stares at her, his gaze hard and unblinking. Maya shifts nervously behind her mom, clutching her hand. Lisa squeezes her fingers gently, trying to reassure her. But inside, Lisa's anger is simmering. This was supposed to be their moment, her chance to give Maya a slice of normalcy, a little joy. And now, this man, with his uniform and his smug smirk, is trying to take that away. Daniels takes a step closer, too close. His presence is oppressive, towering. "You know," he says slowly, I've seen people like you here before. Always think you can do whatever you want. Lisa tilts her head slightly, her eyes narrowing. People like me? She asks, her voice calm but sharp. It doesn't answer. He doesn't have to. The meaning hangs in the air, heavy and unspoken. And here's where it starts to break your heart, because Lisa knew this was coming. She knew the minute she saw him walking toward them that this wasn't going to end with a friendly conversation. But here's the thing about Lisa Johnson. She's been through too much, seen too much, to let someone like Daniels make her feel small. And she's not about to let Maya see her back down. Not tonight. Not ever. What happens next? Let's just say the calm of this peaceful evening is about to shatter. Because some people, they can't handle being told no. Stay with me. So here they are, Lisa and Maya, a mother and her daughter just trying to enjoy a simple evening in the park. And then there's Officer Daniels. His stance is rigid, his expression hard, and his eyes narrow as he takes another step closer. It's like the air around them has changed, thicker somehow, tense, charged. Maya looks up at her mom, sensing something's wrong. She doesn't know exactly what, but kids are smart like that. They can pick up on things adults sometimes miss. She tugs on Lisa's hand. "Mom?" she whispers, her voice small and uncertain. Lisa doesn't look down. Her focus is locked on Daniels now. She knows she can't show any fear. Not for herself, and definitely not for Maya. "It's okay, baby," she says quietly, her voice steady. "Stay close to me." But here's the thing. It's not okay. Lisa knows it. She knows that this isn't just about a man in a uniform asking questions. This is about something deeper, something uglier. And she knows how quickly things like this can spiral. Daniel stops just a few feet away, arms crossed, his voice sharp and cutting. "What are you doing here?" he asks again, this time louder, more forceful. Lisa straightens her shoulders, meeting his gaze head on. "We're just enjoying the park," she says, calm but firm. "My daughter's learning how to skate." Daniel lets out a dry laugh, shaking his head. "This isn't a playground for people like you," he says, his tone dripping with contempt. "You don't belong here." Can you imagine hearing those words? You don't belong here. Imagine being with your child, trying to share a moment of joy, and having someone tell you, without any justification, that you're out of place, that your very presence is a problem. How would you feel? Angry? Humiliated? Scared? Lisa feels all of that. The anger burns in her chest, hot and insistent, but she doesn't let it show. She can't. Not here, not now, not with Maya watching. She takes a deep breath, grounding herself. "This is a public park," she says, her voice steady. "We have every right to be here." Daniels takes another step forward, invading her personal space. "Public or not," he snaps, "we don't need people like you causing trouble." Lisa tilts her head slightly, her jaw tightening. "Trouble?" she asks, her tone sharper now. "I'm teaching my daughter to skate. How is that causing trouble?" Daniels doesn't answer right away. He just stares at her, his lips curling into a sneer. "You people always have an excuse," he mutters under his breath, loud enough for her to hear. And there it is, those two words, "you people." Lisa's heard them before, too many times, and every time they hit like a slap to the face. What would you do if you were in her shoes? Would you yell? Would you fight? Or would you try to stay calm, knowing that anything you do could be twisted against you? Lisa chooses calm, not because she isn't angry, she is, but because she knows what's at stake. She knows that one wrong move could make things worse, not just for her, but for Maya. She takes a small step back, subtly shielding Maya with her body. "Officer," she says carefully, "we're not here to cause any trouble. We're just enjoying the park like everyone else." Daniels doesn't back down. If anything, her calm seems to make him angrier. "I've seen your kind before," he says, his voice low and menacing, always thinking you can do whatever you want, wherever you want. Lisa's fists clench at her sides, but she forces herself to keep her voice level. "I don't know what you think we're doing, but we're not breaking any laws. My daughter is just learning to skate, that's all." But Daniels isn't interested in the truth. He's not interested in logic or reason. He's interested in control. You can see it in the way he stands, the way he leans in just enough to intimidate. He wants Lisa to feel small. He wants her to cower. But Lisa doesn't. She won't. Maya, though, Maya doesn't understand what's happening. She tugs on her mom's hand again, her voice trembling. "Mom, are we in trouble?" Lisa looks down at her, her heart breaking at the fear in her daughter's eyes. "No, baby," she says softly, brushing a strand of hair from Maya's face. "We're not in trouble. Everything's okay." But Maya isn't convinced. She clings to her mom's leg, her small hands gripping tightly. And Lisa knows this isn't just about standing up for herself anymore. It's about protecting Maya. It's about showing her daughter that no one, no matter who they are, has the right to treat them this way. And here's the question that keeps coming back. How far would you go to protect someone you love? Lisa's about to find out, because Officer Daniels isn't done, not by a long shot. What happens next will test everything she believes in, her strength, her courage, her sense of justice, and it will leave Maya with a lesson she'll never forget. Stay with me, and then it happens. I'm laughing because I think you just described the perfect experience. When things go from bad to worse in the blink of an eye, that's where everything changes. Lisa, still calm, still composed, is standing firm. She's done nothing wrong. She knows that. And deep down, Officer Daniels knows it too. But here's the thing. This isn't about right or wrong anymore. It's about power. And Daniels, he's not used to people standing up to him, especially not someone like Lisa. He takes another step closer, towering over her now. "You think you're smart, don't you?" he says, his voice sharp, cutting. "You think you can talk your way out of this? We still got 2 weeks to talk before the filming." "I don't need to talk my way out of anything," she replies, her voice steady. "We're not doing anything wrong." And that's when Daniel's composure cracks. His face twists with anger, his eyes narrowing. He steps into her space, his voice rising. "Disruptive behavior," he spits. "Disturbing the peace. I could arrest you right now." "Arrest her? For what? For being in the park? For teaching your daughter how to skate?" Can you imagine hearing those words, knowing how unjust they are, and still having to stay calm because losing your temper might only make things worse? Lisa stands her ground. "Arrest me for what?" she asks, her voice sharper now, but still controlled. "For teaching my daughter? For existing in a public space?" Maya's grip tightens on her mom's hand. The little girl's wide eyes dart between the two adults, confusion and fear washing over her face. "Mom," she whispers, her voice trembling, "are we going to jail?" Lisa looks down at her, her heart breaking. "No, baby," she says softly, "we're not going anywhere." But Daniels isn't listening. He's not backing down. If anything, Lisa's calm seems to enrage him further. "You people always think you can talk back," he snaps. "Always think the rules don't apply to you." Lisa's jaw tightens. Her fists clench at her sides. But she doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't lash out. She knows that's exactly what he wants. Instead, she takes a deep breath and looks him in the eye. "I know my rights," she says firmly, "and I know you're crossing the line." And that's when it happens. Without warning, without justification, Daniels raises his hand, and he slaps her. The sound echoes through the park like a thunderclap. It's sharp, jarring, unreal. For a moment, everything feels frozen. The world holds its breath. Lisa stumbles back a step, her hand flying to her cheek. The sting of the slap radiates across her face, hot and searing. But it's not just the physical pain. It's the humiliation, the disbelief, the sheer audacity of what just happened. Maya gasps, her small voice breaking the silence. "Mom," she cries, clutching Lisa's leg. Tears fill her eyes as she looks up at her mother, her expression a mix of fear and confusion. "Mom, are you okay?" Lisa straightens slowly. Her hand drops from her face. Her cheek is red, her skin still burning, but she doesn't react the way Daniels expects. She doesn't shout, she doesn't cry, she doesn't cower. Instead, she looks him in the eye, her gaze steady and unwavering. Let me ask you something. How would you react in that moment? What would you do if someone with power, someone who's supposed to protect, struck you in front of your child? Would you fight back? Would you scream? Or would you do what Lisa does next? Because Lisa doesn't back down. Her voice is calm, but it cuts through the silence like a blade. "You had no right to do that," she says. "No right at all." Daniels doesn't respond at first. He just stares at her, his hand still raised as if he's considering striking her again. But there's something in Lisa's eyes now, something that stops him. It's not fear. It's not submission. It's strength. And it throws him off balance. "You think you're tough?" he sneers, stepping closer again, his voice dripping with venom. "You think you can talk to me like that?" Lisa doesn't move, doesn't flinch. "I think you just assaulted me in front of my daughter," she says evenly, "and I think you're going to regret it." Maya clings to her mother's leg, tears streaming down her face. "Mom, I'm scared," she whispers. Lisa looks down at her, her expression softening. "It's okay, baby," she says, her voice gentle. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Can you feel it? The weight of this moment? Because it's not just about the slap. It's about everything it represents. The years of injustice, the fear, the power imbalance. And now, here's Lisa, standing tall, refusing to let this man take her dignity. The park isn't so quiet anymore. People have started to notice. A small crowd gathers at a distance, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. Some pull out their phones, recording the scene. And Daniels, he's starting to realize that he's not in control anymore. But that doesn't stop him, not yet. He leans in close, his voice a low growl. "You're gonna regret this," he says. "You think those people are gonna save you? They won't." Lisa doesn't blink. "We'll see," she replies. And this, right here, is the turning point. The moment when Lisa decides she's done letting people like Daniels dictate her life. The moment she shows Maya and everyone watching that no one has the right to treat them this way. But what happens next? Let's just say the night is far from over. Stay with me, because this story is just getting started. The slap didn't just stop Lisa in her tracks. It caught the attention of everyone nearby. Parents on the playground pause, their conversations dying as they turn toward the commotion. A jogger slows to a halt, pulling out his phone. An elderly woman walking her dog stands frozen, her hand tightening on the leash. And then, one by one, people start to move closer. Phones are raised, their lenses capturing every tense second. Murmurs ripple through the growing crowd, a mixture of shock, anger, and disbelief. "Did he just hit her?" someone asks, their voice cutting through the murmurs. "What's going on?" Daniels notices the people gathering, but he doesn't back down. If anything, his face hardens, his arrogance deepening. He glares at Lisa, taking a step closer. "You think you can talk back to me?" he spits. You think you're above the law? Lisa doesn't flinch. No, she says, her voice steady and calm. But I know the law, and what you just did was illegal. It's a bold move, a dangerous one, but Lisa knows this is her line in the sand. She won't let this man take another step without knowing that she will not be silenced. Just then, from the edge of the crowd, a man steps forward. He's tall, dressed casually, but there's something about him, an air of authority that commands attention. His voice cuts through the tension like a blade. Officer, he says, calm but firm, I suggest you take a step back. Daniels turns, his glare now directed at the man. And who are you? He snaps. The man doesn't flinch. He steps closer, his presence unwavering. James Carter, he says evenly, civil rights attorney, and from where I'm standing, it looks like you've just committed assault. The energy in the air shifts. For the first time, Daniels hesitates. He glances around, noticing the phones pointed in his direction, the growing crowd, the judgment in their eyes. And then there's James, calm, collected, and completely unafraid. Lisa straightens, a glimmer of relief flickering across her face. For the first time tonight, she's not alone. Someone is standing with her, someone who knows the weight of this moment and has the power to push back. The murmurs grow louder now. People begin to speak up. You can't do that, a woman calls out, her voice sharp. It's assault, shouts another man, holding his phone higher. Lisa glances at James, who gives her a small nod, a silent message. I've got your back. And here's the thing. Courage is contagious. One voice can spark another. One step forward can inspire an entire crowd. Have you ever seen it happen? Have you ever felt the tide begin to turn? Lisa feels it now. The weight of Daniel's authority is still there, but it's lighter because now it's not just her against him. It's her, James, and a growing sea of witnesses. But Daniels isn't done. Not yet. His jaw tightens, his fists clenching at his sides. You think a bunch of bystanders and a lawyer are going to stop me? He growls. You people don't know who you're dealing with. Lisa's gaze doesn't waver. No. She says, quietly but firmly, you don't know who you're dealing with. James steps closer, his voice calm but cutting. Officer Daniels, I suggest you walk away before this situation escalates further, because right now, you're outnumbered. And more importantly, you're on camera. Daniels' eyes dart to the phones, his bravado faltering. He knows what this means. He knows that every move he makes from this point on is being documented. And for the first time tonight, he looks unsure. Can you feel the shift? That moment when power starts to crumble? When the oppressor begins to realize that they've overplayed their hand? Lisa feels it too. She stands taller, her hand resting protectively on Maya's shoulder. Maya looks up at her, her tears slowing, her small face filled with something new, awe. Daniels finally steps back, his face red with anger and humiliation. He glances at James one last time, then at Lisa. This isn't over, he mutters, his voice low and bitter. Lisa doesn't respond. She doesn't need to. Her silence is louder than any words. James turns to Lisa, his voice softer now. Are you okay? He asks. Lisa nods slowly. I will be, she says. Thank you. The crowd begins to disperse, their voices still buzzing with outrage and disbelief. But Lisa knows this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. And here's the question that lingers. What happens next? What do you do when the world sees what you've endured? When the truth is out there, undeniable, but justice still feels so far away? For Lisa, the fight is just starting. And this time, she's not alone. And then, just as the air seems to calm for a moment, Daniels makes his move. He grabs his radio, his voice sharp and biting as he calls for backup. I need additional units at the Central Park. Possible suspect resisting, he says, his words cold and calculated, twisting the truth to fit his narrative. Lisa's heart skips a beat, as she hears the word suspect. Suspect? For what? For standing in a public park with her daughter? For daring to stand up to his abuse of power? She doesn't say anything yet, but you can see the fire in her eyes. This isn't just about her anymore. It's about something bigger, something that's been happening for far too long. The crowd around them grows, their murmurs turning into louder voices of dissent. "We saw what happened!" a man shouts from the back, his phone still pointed at Daniels. "She didn't do anything wrong!" Another woman steps closer, her voice shaking but strong. "You can't just hit someone and call for backup like you're the victim." Daniels ignores them, but his posture shifts ever so slightly. He's not as confident as he was before. The phones, the witnesses, they're chipping away at his authority. Still, his ego won't let him back down. Lisa steps forward, placing herself squarely between Daniels and the growing crowd. Her voice is calm but unwavering. "You can call for backup all you want," she says, "but it doesn't change what you did. You assaulted me in front of my daughter, and now you're trying to twist the story." Have you ever seen someone double down when they know they're wrong? When they feel their control slipping and their only response is to dig their heels in deeper? That's what's happening here. Daniels isn't just fighting Lisa anymore. He's fighting his own crumbling sense of power. Daniels glares at her, his jaw tightening. "Watch yourself," he snaps. "You're only making things worse." But Lisa doesn't back down. She doesn't raise her voice, doesn't let her anger show. Instead, she leans into her strength, the kind of quiet, unshakable strength that can't be taken away. "The only person making things worse is you," she says. And everyone here sees it. James Carter, the civil rights attorney, steps forward again. His voice is calm, measured, but there's an edge to it now. "Officer Daniels," he says, "let me remind you that you're on camera. Everything you're doing, every word you're saying, is being documented. I suggest you think carefully about your next move." Daniels scoffs, but you can see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He glances at the phones, at the growing crowd. For a moment, it looks like he might back down. But then, the sound of sirens cuts through the tension. Backup has arrived. This is where the stakes get higher, because now it's not just Lisa against Daniels. It's Lisa, her daughter, and a crowd of strangers against a system that too often protects its own, no matter the cost. One of the officers looks at Lisa, then at the crowd. He sees the phones, hears the voices calling out, and for a moment he hesitates. "Resisting what?" he asks quietly, his tone cautious. Two more officers step out of a patrol car, their expressions unreadable as they approach the scene. Daniels gestures toward Lisa, his voice loud and authoritative. "This woman is resisting," he says. "I need her detained." Daniels glares at him. "Are you questioning me?" he snaps. But the other officer doesn't respond. Instead, he turns to James. "What's going on here?" he asks. James steps forward, his posture calm but commanding. "What's going on," he says, "is an abuse of power. This officer assaulted an unarmed woman in front of her child, and now he's trying to cover it up. There are multiple witnesses, and it's all on video. Can you feel the shift? The way the balance of power is slowly tipping? It's not just about Daniels anymore. It's about everyone watching. It's about accountability. And for the first time, Daniels isn't the one in control. The voices of the crowd grow louder, bolder. "She didn't do anything wrong," someone shouts. "We saw the whole thing." A young woman steps forward, her phone held high. "I got it all on video," she says, her voice trembling but determined. "If you try to arrest her, we'll make sure everyone knows what happened." Daniels looks around, his confidence wavering, but instead of backing down, he doubles down again. "I don't care what you think you saw," he growls. "She's coming with me." But Lisa? She doesn't move. She doesn't flinch. She stands tall, her voice steady as she looks Daniels in the eye. "No," she says. "I'm not going anywhere, and neither is my daughter." Maya, still clutching her mother's hand, looks up at her with wide eyes. There's fear there, yes, But there's also something else, something new, pride. Because this moment, this is what courage looks like. Not loud, not violent, just steady, strong, unyielding. James steps in again, his voice cutting through the noise. "Officer Daniels," he says firmly, "you need to step back. Right now, you're only making this worse for yourself. If you proceed with this, I'll make sure you face the full consequences of your actions." Daniels hesitates, his jaw tightening. For a moment, it looks like he might push forward anyway, but then he sees the phones, the crowd, the determination in Lisa's eyes, and he knows he's lost. The other officers exchange glances, their unease palpable. One of them finally steps forward, placing a hand on Daniel's arm. "Let's step back," he says quietly. "This isn't worth it." Daniels glares at him, but the fight has gone out of him. He takes a step back, his face red with anger and humiliation. "This isn't over," he mutters, his voice low. Lisa doesn't respond. She doesn't need to. Her silence says everything. And just like that, the tide turns. It's not a victory. Not yet. But it's a moment where courage and solidarity push back against injustice. A moment where the voices of the people are louder than the abuse of power. As Daniels retreats, the crowd begins to cheer. It's not loud, not overwhelming, but it's there. A quiet, powerful show of support. Lisa looks around, her heart swelling with gratitude. She's not alone. Not anymore. James turns to her, his expression softening. "Are you okay?" he asks again. Lisa nods, her voice steady. "I am now," she says. But this is just the beginning. Because Lisa knows that standing up to Daniels is only step one. The fight for justice is far from over. The moment Daniels retreats, it feels like the air shifts. The tension that had gripped the park begins to ease, like a storm breaking after hours of relentless thunder. You can still feel the weight of everything that just happened, but now it's mixed with something new, a quiet, steady hope. The crowd stays where they are, watching him leave, their murmurs growing louder. Some cheer softly. Others exchange looks of disbelief, as though they can't quite believe what they've just witnessed. And Lisa stands there, her shoulders squared, her head held high. She doesn't say anything, but her silence speaks volumes. But is it really over? Because, let's be honest, this isn't the kind of story that ends neatly in the park. This is the kind of moment that ripples outward, touching lives, changing perspectives, and maybe, just maybe, sparking something bigger. James Carter steps closer, his calm presence a steadying force. "Lisa," he says gently, "I want to talk to you about what just happened." Lisa turns to him, her expression unreadable at first. You can tell she's still processing everything. The slap, the accusations, the crowd. And now the idea of what comes next. "I don't even know where to start," she admits, her voice quiet but steady. James gives her a small, reassuring smile. "That's okay," he says. "You don't have to figure it all out right now. But what I do know is this. What Daniels did was not just wrong. It was illegal. And I think it's time we hold him accountable." Lisa hesitates. She's tired, physically, emotionally, in every way. The weight of the moment is catching up with her. But then she glances down at Maya, who's looking up at her with wide, tear-streaked eyes. And in that instant, Lisa knows. This isn't just about her. This is about setting an example for her daughter, about showing Maya that standing up for what's right is always worth it. "What does that even look like?" Lisa asks, her voice tinged with both curiosity and resolve. James steps closer, lowering his voice slightly. "It means filing a formal complaint. It means pursuing legal action. It means making sure that Daniels and others like him know they can't keep doing this." Lisa nods slowly. "Okay," she says. Let's do it. Can you imagine the courage it takes to say those two words? To stand there, knowing the fight ahead won't be easy, but choosing to step forward anyway. Lisa doesn't just say yes for herself. She says it for every person who's ever been told to shrink, to stay quiet, to endure. Later, as the crowd begins to disperse, Lisa kneels down to Maya's level. Her hands gently rest on her daughter's shoulders as she looks into her eyes. "Are you okay?" she asks softly. Maya nods, her bottom lip trembling slightly. "I was scared, Mom," she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you weren't. You stood up to him." Lisa smiles, her heart swelling with both pride and sadness. "I was scared too, baby," she says honestly. "But sometimes being brave means doing the right thing, even when you're scared." Maya wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. "You didn't let him win," she says, her voice growing stronger. "You didn't let him make you feel small." Lisa pulls her daughter into a tight hug, her eyes closing as she breathes in the moment. "Neither did you," she whispers. "You were brave too." And this is the thing about courage. It's not just about one big moment. It's about all the small, quiet moments that follow. The moments where you choose to keep going, to keep fighting, to keep standing tall. As Lisa and Maya leave the park, hand in hand, Lisa feels something shift within her. She's still tired, still shaken, but there's a new fire burning in her chest, a determination. This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning. James walks beside them, his voice steady as he outlines the next steps. "We'll file the complaint first thing tomorrow," he says, "and I'll be with you every step of the way. You're not alone in this." Lisa glances at him, her expression a mix of gratitude and resolve. "Thank you," she says. "I don't know what I would have done without you." James shakes his head. "You would have done just fine," he says with a small smile. "You're stronger than you realize." And isn't that the truth? How often do we underestimate our own strength until we're forced to use it? How often do we think we can't go on, only to find that we're capable of so much more than we ever imagined? That night, as Lisa tucks Maya into bed, she feels the weight of the day settle on her shoulders. But as she looks down at her daughter, who's already drifting off to sleep, she feels something else too. Pride. Not just in herself, but in the lesson she's teaching Maya. That standing up to injustice is always worth it, no matter how hard it might seem. And as she closes Maya's door, her phone buzzes. It's a message from James with the details of their plan for the next day. Lisa stares at the screen for a moment, her jaw tightening. She knows this won't be easy. She knows the road ahead will be long and fraught with challenges. But she also knows this: she's ready. Because sometimes the hardest battles are the ones worth fighting. And Lisa is ready to fight, not just for herself, but for Maya and for everyone who's ever been told to stay silent. Stay with me. The story is far from over. This is where the real fight begins. The next morning, Lisa wakes up early, the weight of the previous day still heavy on her shoulders. Her cheek is still sore, a faint bruise forming where Daniel struck her. But the pain doesn't stop her. If anything, it fuels her determination. She's made a decision. This ends here. Maya is still asleep, her small body curled up under the covers. Lisa watches her for a moment, her heart swelling with love and resolve. "This is for you," she whispers, "for your future." By mid-morning, Lisa is sitting across from James Carter in his small but tidy office. The walls are lined with bookshelves filled with legal texts and framed certificates, and the desk is stacked with papers. James leans forward, his expression serious but encouraging. "We're going to start by filing a formal complaint," he says, sliding a form across the desk toward Lisa. Then we'll gather witness statements and submit the video evidence. The more voices we have, the stronger our case will be. Lisa nods, gripping the pen tightly. Her hands shake slightly, not from fear, but from the enormity of what she's about to do. She's not just speaking out for herself. She's speaking out for everyone who's ever been in her shoes. "Do you think they'll listen?" she asks quietly, looking up at James. He meets her gaze, his voice steady. "They'll have to," he says, "and if they don't, we'll make them." Can you imagine what it takes to take that first step? To put your name on paper, knowing it might make you a target? To stand up, not just for yourself, but for everyone who's ever been told to stay quiet. That's what Lisa does, and it's the kind of courage that changes things. Word spreads quickly. By the time Lisa and James leave the office, local news outlets are already picking up the story. Footage of the confrontation in the park circulates on social media. The slap, the crowd, and Lisa's calm defiance captured in shaky but powerful videos. And then something incredible starts to happen. People begin to reach out. Strangers send messages of support, thanking Lisa for her bravery. Others share their own stories of being harassed, silenced, humiliated. Lisa realizes she's not alone, far from it. Have you ever seen what happens when one voice inspires another? When one act of courage becomes the spark for a movement? That's what Lisa is witnessing now. Her story is no longer just her own. It's a rallying cry. Meanwhile, Officer Daniels is placed under internal investigation. The police department issues a public statement promising to thoroughly review the incident, but Lisa knows better than to trust empty promises. She and James keep pushing, gathering more evidence, amplifying their voices, refusing to let the story fade. Daniels' name is now tied to headlines that highlight abuse of power and systemic racism. The pressure mounts. And while he tries to defend himself, the truth is undeniable. The videos, the witness statements, Lisa's unwavering testimony, they paint a picture that can't be ignored. And here's the question. What does accountability really look like? Is it enough for one man to face consequences? Or does real change require something deeper, something systemic? As the weeks go by, Lisa becomes a symbol of strength in her community. People stop her on the street to thank her. Parents tell her how her actions inspired their children. And Maya? Maya looks at her mom with a newfound sense of pride and awe. "Mom," she says one evening as they sit together on the couch, "you're so brave." Lisa smiles, pulling Maya close. "I just did what was right," she says. "And you can too. Whenever you see something that isn't fair." Maya nods solemnly, her small hand slipping into her mom's. "I will." And isn't that what it's all about? Showing the next generation that they don't have to accept injustice, that they can stand up, speak out, and make a difference. One bright afternoon, Lisa and Maya return to the park, the same park where it all began. The golden sunlight filters through the trees, children laugh on the playground, and the air feels lighter, freer. Maya holds Lisa's hand tightly as they walk along the path. "Does it feel different?" Maya asks, glancing up at her mom. Lisa looks around, taking in the familiar sights. The tension, the fear, it's gone. Replaced by something new, something hopeful. "Yes, baby," she says, her voice soft. It feels safer. They stop near the bench where Maya first struggled to skate. Lisa kneels down, helping her daughter strap on her roller skates. "Ready to try again?" she asks, her smile warm. Maya nods, her eyes shining with determination. "Ready." And that's the thing about courage. It doesn't just protect you in the moment. It sends ripples outward, touching lives you might never even meet. By standing up for her rights, Lisa didn't just protect herself and her daughter, she showed everyone watching that it's possible to push back against injustice, possible to say this isn't right and be heard. Think about it. How many times have you seen something wrong and hesitated to act? Maybe it felt too big, too risky. Maybe you thought, what difference can I make? Lisa's story shows us the answer. One voice, one action can inspire others to do the same. Her courage in the park gave strangers the strength to speak up, and their voices gave her the support she needed to keep fighting. It's a cycle, a powerful, beautiful cycle that starts with one person willing to take a stand. But this story isn't just about Lisa, it's about Maya too. For a 10-year-old, the events in the park could have been overwhelming, even traumatic. But instead, Maya walked away from that experience with a lesson she'll carry for the rest of her life. The power of standing up for what's right. Maya saw her mom face down fear, injustice, and abuse of power. And she saw her do it with dignity. Lisa didn't shout. She didn't lash out. She stood tall, spoke her truth, and refused to back down. And in doing so, she gave Maya a blueprint for resilience. Now let me ask you something. What lessons are we teaching the children in our lives? How are we showing them to handle adversity, to face injustice? Because kids don't just learn from what we say, they learn from what we do. Lisa's actions in that park spoke louder than any words ever could. She showed Maya and every child who hears her story that dignity isn't something anyone can take from you, that no matter how small or powerless you might feel, your voice matters. And now it's your turn. Lisa's story is powerful, yes, but it's not unique. Injustice happens every day, in big ways and small. The question is, what will you do when it's your turn to act? Will you stand by or will you speak up? I want to hear your stories. Have you ever faced a moment like Lisa's? A moment where you had to decide whether to stand up for what's right, even when it wasn't easy? Or maybe you've witnessed someone else's courage and been inspired by it. Share your story in the comments. Because here's the thing, when we share our experiences, we remind each other that we're not alone. We create a community, a movement of people willing to stand together against injustice. And if you haven't faced a moment like Lisa's yet, think about how you'd want to respond when it comes. Because the world needs more people willing to stand up, to speak out, to fight for what's right. Lisa's story isn't just about one woman's courage. It's about all of us. It's about the power we have individually and collectively to make the world a little fairer, a little kinder, a little better. It's about teaching the next generation, like Maya, that they have a voice and that their voice can change things. So, what will you take from Lisa's story? How will you let it inspire you? Maybe it's standing up to a bully. Maybe it's speaking out when you see something wrong. Maybe it's simply being there for someone who needs support. Whatever it is, know this: your actions matter. Your voice matters. And when you stand up for what's right, you inspire others to do the same. So let's keep the conversation going. Let's share our stories. Let's create a space where courage is celebrated, where resilience is nurtured, and where dignity is protected. Because together, we can make a difference. Thank you for listening to Lisa's story. It's not just hers, it's ours. A story of courage, resilience, and hope. And it's a story that reminds us that the fight for justice isn't just worth it, it's necessary. Let's stand together, let's speak out, let's be the change we wish to see. Stay strong, stay brave, and never, ever stop believing in the power of your voice.